Baseball today on a Sunday. No better place to be than right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside along with Craig Mish, and we got you for 2 hours. The hottest topics, we got you covered. A full slate of games on a Sunday. Absolutely as well. Happy Easter to everybody out there. It's time to get down to the business, Craig. No team with more than 10 games played in Major League Baseball. We're still early, Craig, but we're having some fun.
Yeah, it's been a great couple of weeks. Learning some things, I think, about some teams, but as you said, very early on, starting to get a little bit of a gauge on the pitchers now that they're all making their second start as we wrap up the weekend. And then it does feel like, Donnie, a lot of the fun stuff is sort of out the window with all of the home openers happening for, of course, opening day, and then this past weekend for the other teams as well. We just have this next 150 games to go or so to the rest of the baseball season.
Absolutely. And today, you got a mixed bag. Some of these teams playing in the Northeast, some rainy, cool, chilly conditions here to see if we get those games in. But that's why we're here. We'll preview them all. But also understand this. We'd love to open the show and talk about some of the hottest topics, which is what's going down over the past week. And I got to tell you, Craig, watching the highlights of this, and if anybody's ever played baseball before and has played outfield, you might get one chance a season or a spring for a shot to rob a home run. In a Major League Baseball, I say, boy, some of these fences are really high. Can you rob one maybe in your career? Craig, how about 3 times in one night, which included the third robbery from Joe Adell falling into the stands in Anaheim? He did it 3 times, and what's more impressive, Craig, they won the game 1-0. He stole 3 home runs. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Yeah, they're saying that maybe this is the best defensive performance individually for any outfielder in history. And I mean, it's hard to compare and not be a prisoner of the moment, Donnie, in this one. And what's more interesting is that, just generally speaking, Joe Adell is not a fantastic defensive outfielder. If you look at his defensive runs saved, even going into the game, he was in the negative. So to see what he did there, absolutely incredible, especially the final one where he goes into the stands and makes the catch. I've seen this happen before where players have gone over and caught the ball. I know that there is some discourse on this as to whether or not it was a catch or not. I don't know where the debate is, Donnie. Like, this has happened before in history, and when you catch the ball and go out, it is a catch. Like, well, what is there to argue here?
Exactly. It'd be one thing if he jumped over the fence, climbed up 10 stairs, and caught the ball in the outfield. Say, okay, that doesn't make sense. But what he did was absolutely fantastic. And in the rule book here, I was just so surprised watching it through, and I love it because, Craig, a lot of times we'll see a 10-2 final. Yeah, a guy robbed 2 home runs, saved 3 runs. It didn't matter. A 1-0 game and stealing 3 of those, and how demoralizing where you hit a deep fly ball, Craig, to right field. Like, oh, this guy's going to do it again to me, man. He was amazing last night, Joe Adell. 3 robberies out there, and away we go into the Major League Baseball season, just a week and a half into it. Let's take a look at some of those Reds pitchers. Yeah, we're talking about, Hunter Green's supposed to be at the top of that rotation. You know who's filling in just fine? Rhett Lauder. A 1.30 ERA is the 5th lowest mark by any Major League Baseball pitcher. Minimum 4 innings pitched per start through his first 8 career starts in the expansion era. Fantastic. And by the way, anytime you see Fernando Valenzuela on that list and how sensational he was coming up for the Dodgers, to be included in that, Craig, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the Reds, Donnie, thus far look like a dangerous team. Yeah. They really do. Their starting pitching has been really good. Chase Burns has been good. We know that Abbott is good as well. They could have 3 or 4 quality starters going into the season like this. They're taking extra bases on the base paths, and their bullpen, Pagan, already has 3 saves. And they really haven't hit the cover off the ball yet, Donnie. And I know that their offense is good, and they're clearly going to score a lot more runs when they're at home. Right now, they're in Arlington, and then they'll head my way in Miami. I'm on those broadcasts for the next 4 days. So I'll get a closer look at them. But, Donnie, that's definitely one team to identify for me in the early part of the season, that if they get these performances like Lauder, Burns, Abbott, and others, this could be a wild card team, a division team, formidable. Keep an eye on them.
Yeah, fun division already to start the season, Craig. First place, Milwaukee Brewers at 6-2. Then you got 5-3 Pirates, 5-3 Reds, 4-4 St. Louis Cardinals, and the 3-4 Cubbies in last place, which many expected them to be the leaders of that division. But once again, it's real early in the season, but just a fun division there to start up. By the way, we've talked a lot, Craig, about umpires so far on this show, and mostly with the ABS system. But I got to tell you, even though they're padded up back there, I've never umpired a game, not even at the Little League level, where you're catching let's just say, a deflection of a swing where the ball comes back and it's like getting punched by Mike Tyson. C.B. Buckner got hit with one of those Wednesday after being struck by a foul ball and had to leave the game. You're talking about a 100-mile fastball coming back and then making it even faster with the foul tip. Those guys take some heat back there.
Yeah, Buckner, and then Saturday in the Marlins-Yankees game, the home plate umpire Ron Culpa also had to leave the game after getting hit by a foul ball. And Donnie, I think that you just said it best, is that when guys are throwing this hard and the velocity comes off the bat that hard, you're going to see more of these than you've seen before. Now, is it unusual to have this happen a couple times a week? Of course, absolutely. But maybe this is something that the Umpires Association has to take a closer look at, with maybe some more protection, because you don't want to see these guys going down at the rate they are. 2 guys in a week, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And basically, you just take a look at the catchers there, like catching the shrapnel, getting hit on the inside of the leg, on the toe, or like having that hand not far enough behind the plate there where it gets clipped off by a foul ball. Tough scene for the umpire. Tough job to have, especially when you get into those summer months. It gets hot out there, and those guys now with the ABS expected to be perfect here. But not just the umpires, Craig, to open up the season. Some of these high-tuned athletes here running around the bases having some issues here. And how about Juan Soto? He got an MRI on a minor calf strain here, and that was going from first to third here early in the year. You never want to hear that, because that's one of those injuries that has to heal 100%, where it could linger or cause one of those things we see in the NBA so much, Craig, that, Achilles injury that pops up from a calf injury. Got to be safe early in the year with Juan Soto.
Yeah, so I don't know Soto's specific injury, and naturally I don't cover the Mets, so I can't speak to exactly what's going on here. But I will tell you, Donnie, that usually when I see something like this, initially the way that this works is that the team's going to put out the most optimistic report just to not freak out the fans. It happens all across the league, and so that's what the Mets are doing here. I would be very surprised, Donnie, to see him play for the next couple weeks. I would guess, now again, anything can happen between now and this evening, but I would guess that the Mets will probably err on the side of caution and put him on the IL, and then we won't see him for about 10, 15 days. Again, that's not any information, Donnie. That's just a guess from me here.
And also in the NL East here to get started, the Philadelphia Phillies. My Phillies 5-3 on the season. Same thing with the Marlins, the first place Atlanta Braves, Craig, at 6-3, and then we see the Mets at 5-4, and the Nationals at 3-5. Talking about the Nationals here going up against the Los Angeles Dodgers. How about Mookie Betts getting an MRI on his back? Now they're saying, Craig, and I quote from an Underdog tweet here, more moderate than significant here. You know as well as I do. When the back has an issue in Major League Baseball, when you're a batter, that is a problem here. Should we expect anything out of Mookie Betts over the next couple weeks, or are they also going to take this one slow just to make sure they get it right?
Yeah, I guess also, Donnie, for me, but my guess would be exactly the same as Soto, which is the Dodgers, even more so than the Mets, are going to be playing, as you know, the long game here. The Mets can't afford to play any long game. They missed the playoff on the last day of the season, so they got to get every win that they can. I think the Dodgers, I mean, say what you want, it would be an epic disaster for them not to just make the postseason. I don't know what would happen in between then, but, the injuries have creeped up now, Donnie, on Betts. He's not 26 anymore, so my guess is, yes, weeks. Maybe longer than that, Donnie, honestly, because when do they really need this guy? It's July, August, and September. If this was a different team, I'd probably say 2-3 weeks. But because it's LA, unfortunately, for those of you who play fantasy baseball and you have Mookie Betts, get ready to put him on the IL and not see him for a while.
And also for the Dodgers, as deep as they get here, they can afford to miss 1, 2, or maybe 3 superstars to start the season at this point, but they still sit in first place in the NL West at a 6-2 record here. But understand this, not the best record in baseball. It's actually the New York Yankees sitting at 7-1. We've got a tight show for you today, which means we're going to hit all of those Major League Baseball games and more. Who cares if it's raining out there? We're going to make sure you're prepared here for opening day for us on Pro Baseball Today, because we get to break down those games and have a lot of fun. But the injury situation to the umpires, to the players, we got you covered there. And also, more importantly, what's coming up on decks. We could spend the whole 2 hours talking about the Philadelphia Phillies, but I won't do that to Craig here. I'm a nice guy. We'll be right back after this tweet.
Bad franchises do bad things, Kevin. You know what I'm saying?
You know what, though, man?
The Cleveland Browns. Todd Monken missed the NFL head coach's photo shoot because the guy was getting his hair cut.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You're on the cover of the team, coach? You're sitting next to Andy Reid, bro. Put on a golf shirt, shut up, and sit down. Oh, I got to get my hair done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Urging them to stop offering these certain sports-related contracts if the leagues are especially ripe for manipulation. These are markets like what is someone on the broadcast going to say during the game, which you can bet on. It's called mention markets, which could be anything like Tom Brady saying, "Oh, I think that they're going to run an RPO."
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
As a former pitcher who thought the umpires were wrong far more than people let on, I like the ABS system. But you're going to have problems because umpires are going to start having issue with the fact that they're being called out. Well, here's the thing. Umpires are now going to be treated like players. They're going to get publicly embarrassed when they make mistakes in front of the fans.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
Massive shift in the sports landscape that the national media desperately does not want to admit. And I am talking about Major League Baseball officially overtaking the NBA as the second most popular sport in America. And the momentum has completely flipped. Numbers don't lie.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
San Diego Padres taking on the Boston Red Sox this weekend here today. We're going to have Walker Buehler on the mound taking on Ranger Suarez, the crafty lefty who first started the season left a lot to be desired here. If we're taking a look at the temperatures today, Craig, in Boston, as I pointed out to start the show, some drizzle around 55 to 60 degrees, but a light wind blowing out to center field at Fenway Park. Buehler versus Suarez, the total in this game has opened up at 9 overnight. Still sits at 9 at most marketplaces here. But a favorite, Craig, at least on FanDuel overnight, was around a minus 144, minus 145. That's increased at most outlets, even as high as 160 here. The favorite, Boston Red Sox, looking to get it going at the plate here, Craig, going up against Walker Buehler today.
Yeah, not scoring many runs. Before we get to this game in particular, Donnie, one thing I do want to mention that hopefully people can remember and put to bed. I know that you're not one of these people that qualify, but the amount of people complaining, which is always complaining on social media, but let's just be clear. The amount of people complaining that their team in the Northeast didn't get that traditional opening day last week. This is why early on in the season, you got to play in the warm weather sites. You got to try and play in the domes because we're going to have horrendous weather today and tomorrow, and maybe even in the early part of next week. This is why baseball gets it right to put the spots in St. Petersburg and Texas and Miami and some of the spots where you actually get the games in. No one wants to be traveling in September, Donnie, late in the season to replay games that don't matter. Now, that being said, neither team, Donnie, is off to a good start here. I mean, if you would have had the combined record of the Padres and Red Sox at the start of the season, you would have been disappointed. Look, I mean, it's very hard for me to look at a game and back Walker Buehler at this point of his career. He's, certainly struggled to get a contract in the offseason. Once upon a time, one of the most dynamic pitchers in baseball, but he's bounced around a bit. This seems like a get-right spot for me for Boston. And, Willie Abreu is, the shining light, I guess, on this team thus far. But they do have a lot of good offensive players. I do think Boston will get it going. Whether or not it's today, I'm not clear. But I would say overall disappointing to see a potential, you never know, World Series matchup, Padres-Reds. Yuck. These teams are like 5-11 to start the season. What's going on here?
Absolutely brutal. And two, you take a look at the Red Sox offense, tied for lowest scoring team in Major League Baseball with a few other teams. We're not expecting that heading into the season. But Craig is right at this point. We saw games yesterday. We're playing snow flurries out here. That's not the way Major League Baseball is supposed to be played. Hitting weather hopefully is around the corner. But if we're taking a look at some of these matchups today, Craig, Ranger Suarez has faced 20 total batters on the season so far. ISO against 316. That's not Suarez like here. Weighted on base percentage 467. Get out of here. But however, the San Diego Padres, Craig also pointed out, struggling on their season. They haven't hit left-handed pitching all that well on this early season. If we flip it over to the Boston Red Sox, who are going to be going up, the Boston Red Sox, how about this? Walker Buehler going to face the Boston Red Sox. Get that one out here. The lineup there, Wilyer Abreu's absolutely crushed right-handed pitching to the tune of 23 at-bats this year, Craig. 478 on that ISO and a 539 weighted on-base percentage. Just waiting for some of those better weather to come in, but I agree with you. It seems like Ranger Suarez, bounce-back performance. Sox finally get off the turf, but at the same time, we do got to worry about that weather today.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would also add to this is that the early part of the season, a lot of fans of their teams freak out when lefties come in and dominate their teams. But the truth is, Donnie, is that in spring training, you're really not getting the full complement of 5, 6, 7 innings from lefties. Batters are not seeing them that often. They're out of the game. And this is why the early part of the year could be a struggle with that. That will normalize over the course of the season. But as you said, to me, look, you mentioned Boston gave a lot of money to Ranger Suarez. They're hoping for a better performance, but it was just one game. And, from watching some of these games, by the way, Donnie, walks are just going up across the board in these northeast spots. It's wet, it's rainy, it's hard to manipulate the ball normally. So keep an eye on that today. Maybe some more walks, more runs coming in this game as well.
How about the first place Guardians today taking on the last place Chicago Cubs? Probably thought that might be an opposite motion here, where the Cubs be in the first place and the Guardians not. But again, it is early. Craig, how about this one? First degrees at first pitch, about 42 degrees. How about wind blowing cross from left foul pole to right foul pole? Close to 20 miles per hour. Yeah, that sounds like baseball weather today. If we take a look at the lineups here, starting pitching Cabrera going against Ciccone, a 7 to 7.5, depending on where you're shopping at, which means that weather is going to have an impact. But the favorite here overnight was the Cubs, around a minus 120, Craig. That's risen up to around a minus 135 plus, depending where you're shopping at today. Cubs are the favorite today, not playing great baseball. Looks like the public's backing them today.
Yeah, Cubs have the better pitcher here to start in Edward Cabrera, who I got a chance to watch for the majority of his career until this year. And this will be one of the more cold weather games that Cabrera is going to have to be featured in. I know he doesn't have a ton of experience at this. A couple of years ago, I think he was very good in Denver in a decent cold weather game here. But look, the story is Cleveland. The story, Donnie, is Chase DeLauter, who has been as good as any hitter to start the season in the American League, and I would guess that he'll try to keep that going today. But Cabrera dominated his first time out. We'll see if he has a chance to do it again today in Cleveland. But once again, we're always sleeping on those Guardians, and here they are off to a 5-3 start again. And if they could just, hang around 500 for the majority of the year, maybe make some trades at the deadline, still hang around, you probably could see them in the playoffs again. I don't have a strong opinion on this game, but it should be a fun one to watch.
By the way, Cabrera on that mound, you're right, Craig, only 19 batters he's faced. How about an ISO against? 0. How about a weighted on base percentage against? 0.83. And you take a look at the lineup for the Guardians. Chase DeLauter is really a standout. 750 ISO and a 618 weighted on base percentage against right-handed pitching early in the season. Gabriel Reyes also has some decent numbers, but the rest of that lineup has really struggled against right-handed pitching. If we flip it over and take a look at Ciccone on the mound, the complete opposite, Craig. 24 batters he's faced. How about a 263 ISO against and a 451 weighted on base percentage? Now, granted, cold weather temperatures here they're going to be playing with. Windy conditions, pop flies should be fun. But you look at Ian Happ in the middle of that lineup here, a 375 ISO and a 330 weighted on base percentage to start the season. Maybe a chance for a home run prop, Craig, where he's checking in there around a plus. Let me see what we got here latest here. Plus 350, plus 360, as high as plus 400 here for a home run prop. Cold conditions, Craig, hard to back some of these batters at this point, though.
Yeah, I mean, Ciccone not going to be Cleveland's best starter this season. We know that, so that's why the Cubs have the advantage. But, sometimes you got to ride the hot hand. Cleveland has been the better team and the hotter team, which is why, for me, it's kind of a pass.
Yeah, it is kind of a pass on that at this point here. But if we do take a look at some of the betting opportunities, only 35% of the moneyline tickets coming in on Cleveland here. We'll see how that stacks up. And can they score some runs there in the colder weather? We continue on Pro Baseball Today on Sunday. Donnie and Craig will be right back. 8 to 9 games into the season, the Los Angeles Dodgers, hey, no surprise, first team out there, or first place in the NL West, and actually by 2.5 games over the Arizona Diamondbacks, followed by the Padres, Giants, and the Rockies. The questions weren't what were we going to get from the Dodgers. We expect excellence this year. They're a 6-2 record, but also what we're going to get out of Washington sitting there in the NL East. And you take a look at their record. They're in last place at 3-5, a 4-game losing streak for the Nationals. Let's see if they can stop the bleeding today. It'll be tough because they're going up against the Dodgers. Sasaki will be on the mound going up against Griffin. And here we go. Overnight lines, Craig, give or take -175, depending where you're shopping at. We're now seeing most outlets 215 or higher as the favorite for the Dodgers, and a total that sits at 9, Craig.
Yeah. Man,
Crazy.
Yesterday was a tough one for those Nationals, I mean, I guess the good news is that C.J. Abrams is off to a good start for them. I know that's somebody who they really need, but look, you got to call it what it is. Washington, who I thought the first week played pretty good baseball, have sort of run into the buzzsaw that is the Dodgers at this point. And, naturally 1 out of every 3 games, you're going to get absolutely crushed betting on LA because they're not going to win, and then you're going to be laying this big number and you're going to be back to square one, or let's just say square zero at this point. But Foster Griffin, who is back in the big leagues, is going to have a real test today against Los Angeles. You alluded to Mookie Betts being out of the lineup. I don't know that it matters that much. The hot name right now for LA is Andy Pages. I believe he leads the major leagues in hitting this season, just tearing the cover off the ball. I would expect LA to win today, but obviously always dangerous when you're laying -200 or above.
Certainly is. You take a look again at the temperatures, which aren't bad in Washington today, Craig, about 65 degrees. But again, that heavy cloud of rain that's going to come through, which we always bring up the point where if you're going to bet a heavy favorite, most of the time, Craig, you're basically betting on pitcher versus pitcher. And then, you have a better lineup, obviously, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. But if that pitcher only goes 2 to 3 innings when you expected 5 or 6 innings, that could throw it to a little bit of an array. But then again, the Dodgers have a very good bullpen. However, Foster Griffin is going to be pitching today. 21 batters he's faced on the season. As a lefty, very good against lefties, has been a little bit shaky against right-handed batters, Craig. A 308 ISO against and a 396 weighted on-base percentage. However, you look at that Dodgers lineup, Craig, from start to finish against lefties on the season, they have really struggled with it. You open up the show saying, hey, some of these teams just can't get it together, including my Philadelphia Phillies. Like, hey, throw any junk lefty out there early in the season. Yeah. Their timing is off. So far, Dodgers' timing has been off against lefties.
Yeah, it's exactly what I said before, is that, you go through spring training in Florida and Arizona, and every team generally has 1 lefty, maybe 2 in their starting rotation, maybe even 3, just depending on the team. You don't, as a lefty, have an opportunity, or even as a righty, really, to see that much left-handed quality pitching because the guys are out of the game after the 3rd or 4th inning for about a month. And then you expect all of a sudden in the last week of the season for that guy to make that 1 6 or 7 inning start and all of a sudden to succeed. So this is going to take time. The one thing my takeaway from this game is it could be a lower scoring game, I think, between LA and Washington today. And that's usually my rule of thumb on Sundays. If you look at the entire slate, my guess is above 50% on Sundays, you're going to get unders in Major League Baseball. It's a travel day. It's a get home day. Some, people have their families in town. By the way, I should mention also a holiday today. Who even knows what's going on before these games today, too? So it's not like a blind bet of close your eyes and just bet all the unders. But my guess is you're going to get a lot of more low-scoring affairs on a Sunday afternoon.
Easter eggs all over the place here on hotel rooms, Craig. Could be a little bit distracting. But if we look at this game and say, all right, it's early in the season. And for me, Craig, I typically like to say, you know what? I can wager confidently about a month into the season. Give me a couple starts out of the pitchers. Give me 100 at-bats or so out of these guys. But sometimes you have to look back to last year. You take a look at Sasaki. The one thing he struggled with last year, Craig, he faced 96 left-handed batters, had a weighted on-base percentage against a 341 and an ISO of 198, both of those slightly elevated. Higher walk percentage, also a lower K percentage here to left-handed batters. The reason I bring that up, the expected lineup today for Washington, Woods, lefty, Garcia, lefty, Lau, lefty, Abrams, lefty, Nunez, switch hitter, which means he'll be a lefty, Vivas, lefty, Ruiz, lefty. You're looking at a possibility of maybe 7 left-handed batters, which when you're looking to strike an upset early in the season, maybe something like that you can lean on. But it is always hard just going against the Dodgers. Nobody wants to go against the Dodgers.
Yes, it was funny. You just said Nasim Nunez's name, and Sam let out a chuckle, which we didn't hear on the air, as if he's a huge factor in today's lineup. No disrespect to Nasim Nunez, Donnie, but yeah, I mean it should be a fun game today in Washington. Yeah. But man, those Nats, man, like trying to avoid 100 losses, you got to win every once in a while, and this has got to be one of them.
It wasn't too long ago, Craig, maybe the most talented lineup in Major League Baseball from starting pitchers to 1 through 9 was the Washington Nationals. You trade superstars away, you get prospects back. Prospects don't always work out. Not a lot of them have worked out there for the Washington Nationals. A feel-around season for those Nats. We'll be right back after the break. More Major League Baseball is on its way.
We're proud of this class. This is the weakest Hall of Fame class in the history of the Basketball Hall of Fame. This is an embarrassment to the men and women that are deservingly in that Hall of Fame. And the dead ones are rolling over in their grave right now saying, get this basketball out of my gravesite because I don't want to be associated.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Italy can't make the World Cup. That's wildly embarrassing.
You know, Italy, to me, I think they're like the Cowboys, right? They're the Dallas Cowboys, basically. They're this ultimate sort of public team, big merch, like, you know, monsters.
That's a good one.
Yet they really haven't won in a while. But we're talking about a world superpower.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Find some opportunities to make yourself some money or to find a middle or, man, that doesn't look right. I'm going to go under whatever, arbitrage, hedge. You could do all of these things. It's why we do these shows. And in-game betting, I know a lot of people that make a lot of money off of in-game betting. There's nothing wrong with in-game betting. I think it's much more good than it is bad. But sometimes for your own peace of mind, it is okay to just walk away and check on it later.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Discussion in March was, oh, this ABS is ruining everything. There's challenges in the second inning and the third inning. And yes, for CB Buckner, that has been the case. But for every other umpire in Major League Baseball, what you're seeing, Donnie, is exactly what you said. This is going to normalize. We did see a lot of success in the first couple of days of the season.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Let's head out to the Steel City right here on Pro Baseball Today. The Baltimore Orioles taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates today. And not too bad, Craig. 50-degree temperatures, no rain in the forecast, and double-digit winds blowing out to left field at PNC today. If we break this game down, it's going to be Bassett versus Ashcraft. Overnight, the lines, roughly a slight favorite here for Pittsburgh. Craig, give or take, minus 120. We're seeing those a little bit higher this morning, as high as minus 131 listed at DraftKings. And a total, which opened up at 8.5, Craig, overnight, now sits at 8.5. The O's and the Buccos today out in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so interesting game. I think interesting narrative being played right now with the Pirates. And look, when the Pirates had the beginning of Paul Skeens' career a couple of years ago, there's no question, Donnie, that every time that guy pitches, it's must-watch TV or buy yourself a ticket and go to the game. But let's also be honest here. Skeens, as great as he is, Cy Young Awards, future, probably incredible, Donnie, he's not an everyday player. And Connor Griffin is. And this guy has absolutely set Pittsburgh on fire. He gets the long-term contract extension. He makes his debut. He doubles in a run. And it seems like he has literally catapulted the emotions of both the players and the fans at this point. And the Pirates are running hot right now against the Orioles. On the flip side here, Donnie, man, are the Orioles going to go through it here again at the beginning of the season with all of the ads that they made and getting Pete Alonso 3-5 to start the year? This is not what they had in mind. You can't lose the season in March and April, Donnie, but the Orioles are not off to a good start. Clearly, this will be a coin flip type game. As I mentioned, guys just want to get out of there on Sunday. It's an early game there. But I love riding the emotion factor with Pittsburgh at this point. And what a signal toward the future of giving a 19-year-old over $140 million, plugging him in, playing him every day. I mean, Skeens and Griffin and Chandler and some of these young players, man, you would think that the Pirates' future is now.
That's what it would be, because in the future, which means those players will be New York Yankees or somewhere spread out around Major League Baseball. We'll see how that one works out. But for today, Craig, you got some hope for the Pirates. And by the way, Ashcraft is on the mound. Only 25 batters on the early season that he's faced. He struggled a little bit. And again, it's only 9 batters from the left-hand side at 286 ISO and a 432 weighted on base percentage here. You do have a good amount of lefties in the lineup as a possibility for the Baltimore Orioles, which includes Adley Rutschman, middle of that lineup, 15 at-bats, Craig, going up against right-handed pitching, a 250 ISO and a 451 weighted on base percentage. But if we flip it over and take a look at Bassett on the mound, who last year struggled at times with lefties, you're also going to get some decent lefties in the lineup today. Cruz, Lau, what he got, Reynolds, and O'Hearn. Actually, 4 out of the first 4 batters, they're all lefties here, Craig. Then Horowitz in the bottom of that lineup as another lefty. Maybe the lefties can stack today, but I'm with you here. It seems like a toss-up where maybe, hint at the end of the show, you lean towards a dog here in this environment.
Yeah, this is a really tough one to call, but
yeah.
And I know some folks will be in on the Orioles today just to think how hard it is to sweep a team.
Yeah.
But and by the way, I don't love the Pirates this season. I think they're just riding emotions of being at home and doing things differently for the first time in a while. And I do like the fact that O'Hearn, who they did sign to a multi-year contract, is off to a good start. But for one game in this scenario, I probably would back the Pirates again. Just to get it done. I'm not clear on what Bassett exactly is going to be for them this season. The Orioles said that they had a lot of pitching depth. At the beginning of the year, they sent down one of their best starters, I thought, Dean Kramer, to the minor leagues. And so he's like their 6th guy or something here. But I haven't seen anything that resembles like this huge bounce back by the Orioles for me, Donnie, yet. And I'm not going to be a prisoner of 8 games. I'm not going to do that. But in a 1-game scenario today, I do think the Pirates keep it going.
Yeah, the interesting part about that, too, is we always have like the factor in it's early in the season, but these games count just as much as they do in September. Same thing with a batter at the plate. You want to get hot to start the season where your batting average is 390 by the time you get, 3 or 4 weeks into the season. You don't want to start the season at 190 and try to battle back. So we'll see what happens today in Pittsburgh. But also, it's one of those teams with the Pittsburgh Pirates where if they can get out to a good start, pressure starts to build on management to say, hey, at the deadline, maybe we don't spend a ton of money, but we do get some help for this lineup here for maybe a playoff or even a wild card run, and we'll see if that works out. 2 teams looking for a playoff run and or wild card run. It's going to be Milwaukee taking on Kansas City today. Harrison, the lefty on the mound, going up against Chris Bubich, another lefty. Overnight, this line sat around a -130 favorite for the Kansas City Royals. Now we're seeing it a little bit less, Craig, that -125s in the marketplace, and a total that's listed at 7.5. We're playing this game in Kansas City. Not bad temperatures, Craig, right around 60 degrees. No rain in the forecast, and more of a crosswind from left foul pole to right foul pole today.
Yeah, Garrett Mitchell having a nice start to his season. Bryce Terang also having a good start, Donnie. The Brewers are 6-2. Terang, crazy number of doubles, 4 doubles to start already this season. So, and by the way, I guess all that World Baseball stuff out the window. Terang played the World Baseball Classic, seems to be doing just fine in the regular season. Yep. Can we end that discussion as well? So I kind of like Milwaukee here a little bit. They just always seem to be in the right spot. And I think the Royals will be better. The one thing that we haven't really seen yet is this explosion, supposedly, of offense that was going to happen when the Royals moved in the fences. But it could just be a matter of early season weather. Not a strong opinion on this, but I do think Milwaukee is the better of the 2 teams.
Yeah, look at that 7.5, Craig, as a total. Means it takes 8 runs to beat you if you take the over. I think this game might settle into more of an under as well. 2 lefties on the mound going up against that. Hey, just got to see more left-handed pitching as the season goes on. Bubich last year was sensational, Craig. 477 batters he faced. How about an ISO against combined between lefties and righties at 109 and a weighted on base percentage at 283. He was really good in a K percentage, right around 25%. Early season Milwaukee has struggled at times going to get up against lefties. Guys that have had success there, William Contreras as well as Gary Sanchez, even though it's only 5 at-bats here, and also with Blake Perkins. If we flip it over to Kansas City, it's early in the season. And yes, they haven't seen a lot of left-handed pitching. Most of those guys, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 at-bats that they've had. Harrison on the season from last year, Craig, only faced 155 batters, a 156 ISO, which is pretty good, a weighted on base percentage, about average at 319. However, if I'm looking at the early season ISO numbers, Craig, here for the Kansas City Royals, outside of Isaac Collins, who has a 429 ISO through 7 at-bats against lefties, everybody else, Craig, listed at a 0 here. I think the ball stays in the ballpark. Give me that under 7.5 today.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call here, and the bullpens are pretty good too on both sides, especially Milwaukee's. But this is where the danger zone comes in the early part of the season, Donnie, because you really just don't know what you're going to get over the course of the whole year. And good that Kansas City's getting Collins off to a good start. They got him back in the lineup, seems to be faring pretty well. But my guess is we'll find a lot better games on the board today to take a look at and identify, because this is just simply one of those where if the score is going to end up being 3-2 or 4-3, it could go either way.
By the way, Craig, you look at the season numbers here for Milwaukee, because in the offseason, it's like, oh, wait, you traded Freddie Peralta, you're only ace away, and now Jacob Mizorowski is going to be that ace. Can he fill that? He seems to be doing just fine, but also spending like $3 in free agency. Oh, this could be the down step for the Milwaukee Brewers, who, remind you, had the best record in Major League Baseball last year, and here they are, and it's only a week into the season, 8 or 9 games into it. And Craig, they're still in first place. It's just what the Brewers do.
It just doesn't matter who they have. It seems like it's just so strange, such a well-run organization. And, it really goes back to a couple of years ago, Donnie, when Craig Counsell left. You remember that? And everyone was like, oh, the Brewers are screwed. He's the best manager in baseball. Then they bring in a new guy, not new anymore, Pat Murphy. He wins manager of the year. So they're just a factory for pitching, a factory for extensions, getting their young guys done. And as I mentioned, when you look at the leaderboards for total bases of the season, and you see a star in Bryce Terang, who I think is becoming a superstar this season, in the top 5 of that, second, I believe, in the National League in total bases. I mean, again, think about that, Donnie. If I told you 3 years ago, 2 years ago, how that Brewers was going to get it done with a guy named Bryce Terang, you would have said, who, what, where? Incredible farm system, great development too.
Exactly. Started early in the week, too. Hey, any thoughts, Craig, on oversleeping your alarm and everybody getting upset out there? We making too big of a deal out of sleeping through alarms here or what?
No, that's rare, man. It doesn't happen that often. Maybe once a year at the most for a player, and sometimes none. No, I think that is a thing, and unfortunately for Carter Jensen, he's going to have to wear that the rest of his career. Not a normal situation, Donnie, for that to happen.
Most of us have that body clock that's like, I know I have to get up early in the morning. I'll set 3 alarms, but you wake up like 16 times overnight just to make sure. Not in this case, man. Heavy sleeper. We'll be right back on Pro Baseball Today. Two under 500 teams here to start the season as we head to Minnesota, and just looking at some of those weather temperatures over the past couple of days, when you got to wear jackets in the dugout, you see that a lot, but jackets to just warm up for this Major League Baseball game, and you see the flurries come down, never a good sign. So today, we'll take another look there up in Minnesota. It's going to be Tampa Bay versus Minnesota for the final game of their stanza. Nick Martinez on the mound here for Tampa Bay going up against Simeon Woods Richardson. If you look at the overnight lines, Craig, really a de facto pick 'em here. 115 minus 105 splits, minus 110, minus 110s. So roughly even. And the total, which was 8.5 overnight, has dropped down to 8 now in the Twin Cities here, Craig.
Yeah, I think that line is moving the wrong way. Tampa Bay is hitting the ball very well. Yandy Diaz, maybe the best hitter in the American League through a week and a half. Simpson is off to a good start. There's a young player that he was, I believe, on Miami for a period of time. Tristan Gray has driven in a lot of runs. For the Twins, you see Josh Bell off to a good start. I think that there's some runs to be had in this game today, Donnie. I do think that there is a chance that we could see this fly over the total here. I don't love either starting pitcher also, and Martinez is prone to give up the home run. To me, Minnesota is one of those teams probably going the wrong way this season. Tampa Bay eventually will get it right. Strange that they have them so much here, by the way, Donnie, on the road to start the year. Bizarre. Yeah. I do think some runs are in store for today. I like what I've seen from Tampa's offense to start, and Minnesota can swing it as well, and they really haven't gotten all that much from some of their other stars. So for me, I don't understand the movement down to 8 here. Maybe the weather.
Take a look against right-handed pitching here going up against Yandy Diaz. He's done really well, Craig. A 507 weighted on base percentage and a low K number at 13%. Other guys, Arandis had decent numbers. Fortes has decent numbers. Williamson and also Chandler Simpson with a 439 weighted on base percentage here going up against Woods Richardson. If we flip it over to the other side, Martinez being the mound, he's your everyday run-of-the-mill pitcher, Major League Baseball. Last year, 690 batters he's faced, a 182 ISO, right around average, weighted on base percentage, 322, Craig, right around average as well. But if you do look at that Twins lineup here, early season against right-handed pitching, Craig, it's done well. Cody Clemens, Byron Buxton, Wallner, Bell, as well as Larnach and Lewis all have really good ISO power numbers against right-handed pitching. Maybe, Craig, you're on to something. Double-digit wind blowing out the right field, that short porch out there. Maybe we do get some runs.
Yeah, no, I do think so. Yeah. And, look, naturally, you're still waiting for Royce Lewis and some of the other Twins hitters to start getting it going. But if we're talking about ISO numbers with Chandler Simpson and focusing on that, a guy who's not going to, hit a ton of extra base hits this season beyond just getting hits and stealing bases. And again, you don't have, you would say, the Twins' best pitcher, the Rays' best pitcher, probably not even their second or third. So you get deeper into that bullpen as the week goes on. You may be getting some guys coming in to just save some innings ahead of next week. So, yeah, I do like some runs today in that game.
More cold weather and a 2:10 start here in the Midwest, or should we say maybe just the Windy City here. Be Toronto taking on the Chicago White Sox. Lauer going up against Martin here. Overnight, the favorite, of course, is going to be Toronto. Around a minus 150. It's risen at a lot of outlets here, including DraftKings, I'm saying, at a minus 163 road price now as the favorite for Toronto. The total opened up at 8, still sits at 8, Craig, here. Lauer versus Martin in the Windy City. Two teams looking for a victory today.
Yeah, look, the White Sox are obviously not good. I saw them play here in South Florida last week, so I understand that. Was it earlier this week? It was earlier this week. Wow, time flies. But I would also say that I have not loved what I've seen from Toronto this season. So this is, to me, as we'll talk about later in the show, one of those sneaky, maybe a dog comes through today for the Blue Jays. Who's really doing it, Donnie, on offense? Andres Jimenez, right? Like, I think he's probably off to their best start. You would not expect that to be the name. And meanwhile, the White Sox are getting everything that they can from Murakami. He seems to be homering either every day or every other day. And, I just think that the line is a little bit off here. I think it should be a little bit tighter. And the Blue Jays are going to get right, and they're going to get Bassett back, and they're going to get E. Savage back, and they're going to get Bieber. Then they're going to get their starting pitchers, and they'll get going. But for the time being, this could be a slog in the month of April for Toronto. So I think the White Sox have a shot here.
By the way, Craig, on to something with Andres Jimenez, because it's one of the names I wrote down. You take a look at Davis Martin, right-handed pitcher here. He was very good last year against right-handed batters. 294 he faced, Craig, a 159 ISO, which is above average for a pitcher, and a weighted on base percentage 311, which again, above average for a pitcher here, doing his job. Struggled a little bit, though, with lefties last year. 306 lefties he faced, Craig, a 192 ISO, which is elevated, and a 339 weighted on base percentage, also a little bit elevated, and a low K rate of around 15%. So why would that be important? Well, it's sort of carried over this year already, Craig. And again, it's only 14 batters he faced as lefties, but look at the ISO against, 417. Weighted on base percentage against, 557. Walk percentage around 15%, which is too high, which then leads us to Jimenez, who actually has 20 at-bats against right-handed pitching on the season. 421 ISO, 504 weighted on base percentage. So for me today, it's up to the lefties on Toronto to do some damage. That's your boy Jimenez out there, Craig.
Yeah, Jimenez off to a good start. It seems to me, from what I'm watching in the early part of the season, is that until the other Blue Jays hitters start getting going, I don't think you're going to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. get a lot of pitches to hit. He's already walked 6 times to start the season, and he's not a guy usually that is going to get walked. He wants to get his plate appearances. So, Blue Jays probably, look, usually speaking, Donnie, the team that loses the World Series does not get off to a great start the next season. The Blue Jays are right there at 4-4. I'm not saying that they're a bad team. To me, they're still one of the best teams in the American League, but I feel like going through it here a little bit at the beginning of the year. So the White Sox are going to be that team I take a shot on today.
Yeah, White Sox look like a hangover as well, Craig. Minus 27 in run differential to start the season already. Now, Eric Lauer, not a great pitcher. He's a crafty lefty as it goes. But if you look at the lineup for the White Sox today, and again, a lot of these teams haven't faced a lot of left-handed pitching. Austin Hayes is a right-handed batter, only 4 bats against lefties, a 250 ISO, and a 318 weighted on base percentage. If we just go back to the ISO power numbers with that White Sox lineup we anticipate today, outside of Austin Hayes, who has a 250, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, Craig, and 0 there. Let's get those power. Where's the power at White Sox?
Just Murakami, I guess, Donnie, at this point. Look, I mean, Chicago's not... I saw Davis Martin pitch, by the way, in person. He created his own problems. I think he made a couple of errors, or, I mean, they could lay some bunts down on Martin. He seemed like he wasn't really with it here, but I mean, maybe he'll be better today.
Murakami chooses the White Sox here, doing damage at it. It's like, what type of other players that I got with me at this point? Going to be a long season for the White Sox, but maybe a good season for Murakami here. More Major League Baseball on the way. It's Pro Baseball today on an Easter Sunday, right here on the Grid.
So much to get into.
So much to get into, so little time. Listen, this is a time of year where it's great basketball. Teams that have to be at their best, some teams at their best for 40 minutes, some teams at their best for 36 minutes. But at the end of the day, you got to play your best 40. Otherwise, you're going home like we saw over the last couple of days.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Why are all these contracts being signed, folks? Yes, the players are talented. Yes, they are deserving of it, but it's such goodwill to hand out these buyout arbitration contracts for these young players this time of the year, right before opening day, to get all their fans excited. And notice, right before the Pirates' home opener, not before opening day, for their home opener, to set up.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Kansas City trading as a favorite, Joe. Do we think that's the possibility of that first game?
Yeah, they should make it the Jets, Donnie, so they can guarantee a win in front of their fans to open up the set. I'm just saying. I mean, that's what I would do. But no, I mean, ideally the NFL would love a Kansas City reunion at Buffalo in the new stadium.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There's a basketball player who's 7'9". He's insignificant on his team. And quite frankly, I don't know if he goes Division 1, 2, or 3 at this point and will be significant. Joe, how can you be 7'9" and not be able to get on the court in college basketball? Shouldn't he be maybe, I don't know, the most dominant shot blocker in the history? I watched Manu Bol be a really good player at times in the NBA.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Rangers were one of my teams to watch here in 2026. I said to myself, hey, man, good start to season here. 4-1 overall, and then 3 straight losses back to 4-4, and away we go. Cincinnati and Texas going to do business today. Burns on the mound versus Leiter overnight, Craig. Really a de facto pick'em game, but now we see it rising a little bit in the favors here for the Texas Rangers at about a minus 125 price, and also the total sits at 7.5. Texas looking to shake this 3-game losing streak coming up against the Reds today.
Yeah, Burns of Cincinnati, one of the really good young pitchers you'll get a chance to see today, and the Reds, I think playing really good fundamental baseball to start the season, because Donnie, this is a team that on paper, you look at, they got 4 or 5 guys with Suarez, De La Cruz, Stewart, McLean. You're like, they're going to hit 30, 40 home runs each, right? Like, they're all going to have huge years. It really hasn't been the case. And then you look at Cincinnati and say, man, they got all these guys that are fast, and they're going to be stealing a bunch of bases at the start of the season. Donnie, they have one stolen base. One stolen base this season with Ellie De La Cruz and McLean and all these others. So how are they getting it done? It's been on the strength of their pitching. They haven't been scoring a lot. By the way, Donnie, the Rangers haven't been scoring a lot either. So maybe that is the recipe today. Another low-scoring game on tap between Cincinnati and Texas. You wouldn't think so on paper with the lineups that these two teams have, but the pitching is going to be good. Burns is going to get a lot of swings and misses. Pagan leads the majors in saves with 3. Would he be available today? I think that has to be in question too. Maybe you look at this game halfway through and wonder if the Reds have a lead. Maybe Texas comes back at some point. Probably just a straight-up pass for me, but I don't think a lot of runs are in store. At least it hasn't seemed that way to start the season for either team.
Yeah, take a look at Chase Burns, and you're right about this. Last year, Craig, 194 batters faced at 35% K rate here, which was sensational, 37% going up against right-handed batters. This year, you see it, 19 batters he's faced, which isn't a lot. He's at 37% as a K rate here. And by the way, ISO against 0.0, weighted on base percentage against 156. Last year, Craig, as a right-handed pitcher, struggled a little bit with left-handed batters here. A 230 ISO, weighted on base percentage of 357, elevated walk rate here, but still that high K rate, which is always going to bail you out. If we flip it over and look at that Rangers lineup, the one guy that has done a lot of damage early in the season against right-handed pitching, it's Corey Seager, a 600 ISO with a weighted on base percentage of 476. Another lefty in the lineup today, Evan Carter, center fielder, a 188 ISO, which is decent, but a 387 weighted on base percentage. Those are the guys you look to in the lineup as lefties that might be able to do some damage. But as you pointed out, Craig, the greatest thing a pitcher can do, hey, I walked a guy, gave up a base hit. The strikeout is huge. 1-out guy on third, get the strikeout. Can't have that positive out here that's going to move a run across the plate. That's what I'm interested to see here, Craig. The lefties going up against Chase Burns today.
Yeah, and look, Burns was very, very highly touted over the last couple of years, so it doesn't surprise me to see him having this kind of success. But you just generally don't associate the Reds with a 5-3 start, getting off to it with winning games, not stealing bases, not having Hunter Green, and still playing this well. So a lot of credit, by the way, to the manager also, and Terry Francona. Yeah. As I talked about, I think that Cincinnati is one of those sneaky teams this season. I don't know who's going to win this game because, again, I could see a more low-scoring affair here. But as we look at the board and you look at 15 games or 14 games and you say find the best 3 or 4 unders, to me, this is another one of those today. I just don't see a lot of runs coming from either team.
And by the way, you're right about the middle of that lineup. Like, hey, Seager can have great ISO power number. Same thing with Jake Berger. Both of those guys have struck out quite a bit against right-handed pitching. But then you take a look at Peterson, Smith, and Young right behind him. All 0.0 ISO power numbers against right-handed pitching. So you get guys on base, you got to be able to drive them home. They haven't been able to do that. If we take a look at Jack Leiter on the mound here for the Texas Rangers, been pretty solid on the season. Only 24 batters that he's faced. Craig, a 174 ISO, which is about average, but a really good weighted on base percentage of 280. He's been great against right-handed batters, but not so great against lefties. You take a look at that lineup for the Cincinnati Reds today, you're going to have TJ Friedel at the top of that lineup, as well as Ellie De La Cruz, who's a switch hitter, will be batting from the left-hand side today, but not a lot of lefties in that lineup, and that's where Jack Leiter's been hit up this year so far.
Yeah, and De La Cruz off to a good start, but again, this is a guy that can steal 70, 80 bases, and not many to start with. Sal Stewart got off to that real hot start.
Yeah.
They do seem to be making contact and hitting the ball more often, and the Reds' emphasis in the offseason was to get aggressive on extra base hits and tagging up, so keep an eye on that today. That could lead to either some more runs or maybe even conversely some more outs. So fun game for me. I'll be locked into watching because, Donnie, when I got a 4-game series broadcasting coming up, I got to keep an eye on the opponent, and the Marlins' opponent is the Reds the next 4 days.
And by the way, you're going to see Eugenio Suarez love him against right-handed pitching. Hasn't forced a walk yet, but has struck out 43% of the time in his plate appearances here. Never give up, Eugenio. Hour number 2 coming up next.